Good evening. I'm Spot On Weather meteorologist Matthew Euler. Welcome to the weather map discussion for Friday evening, the 23rd of September, 2022. On tonight's opening slide, I'm showing one of those classic fall tropical systems, tropical cyclones, that has moved up the East Coast. This is Hurricane Matthew from October of 2016. And this particular system packed quite the punch, especially from Georgia. It moved offshore just east of, just east of the Florida Peninsula, and then moved up the East Coast, just off the mid-Atlantic, before making a turn back seaward. But it did pack quite a punch. I remember this one specifically. We got around a foot of rain over a matter of 2 days in the Hampton Roads, Virginia area with this particular system. And these are the threats now that are very much apparent climatologically as we head into the fall season. We can get these tropical systems to develop down in the Caribbean and work their way northward, sometimes crossing Cuba, sometimes going west into the Gulf of Mexico, other times moving over the West Atlantic, generally in the vicinity of the Gulf Stream, just arriving and tapping into that energy, that moisture, that warmth from the Gulf Stream. So this is the time of year we really have to pay attention climatologically to tropical systems that can develop fairly close to the United States shoreline, as well as in the Caribbean. Let's go ahead and start tonight's video here with the latest satellite image. So I'm going to go ahead and break out my laser pointer. Generally across the United States this evening on the 23rd of September, we do see some higher or colder cloud tops associated with the system, mainly to the north of the U.S. border and to western Canada. There is some rain and some moisture, or some cooler cloud tops anyway. Not much rain is showing up in Montana, but there are some cooler cloud tops showing up in western Montana. Additionally, we do have some higher cloud tops down across Arizona and New Mexico this evening. Additionally, there are some cooler cloud tops in association with a frontal system that's stretching across Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, into Michigan. And they're wrapping around, this frontal boundary is wrapping around into an area of low pressure over the northern plain states, northwestern Minnesota specifically, this evening. If you look at the radar mosaic here, or the radar image rather, on the right, you will notice some scattered showers falling this evening across parts of Arizona and New Mexico. In addition, you will notice those rain showers falling across North Dakota, into parts of Minnesota, even parts of South Dakota, and then also stretching along the frontal boundary into Green Bay, Wisconsin, and southward to Milwaukee, Interstate 43, and then also heavier showers there across the Midwestern United States, across parts of Interstate 55 through Illinois, from St. Louis to Springfield, as well as through parts of southern Indiana. There is one particular area, if you notice here on the satellite image, the enhanced infrared image here on the left, these green colorings indicates cooler cloud tops. And this, believe it or not, is the backside of Hurricane Fiona. And this storm is going to cause a lot of problems for Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island in that particular area. We could see winds in excess of 100 miles per hour, extremely heavy rainfall, as well as some of the surge associated with it. And then you can see the radar returns here on the right, here the radar image, some of the steadier greens that are showing up in the backside of Fiona's circulation. One thing you will take note of on the satellite images this evening are some of these cloud streets that have developed offshore, off East Coast. And then you have clearing right along the immediate coast. And this is very typical when you get a cooler air mass that pours off the eastern United States over the warmer waters of the western Atlantic. So you generally see dry or clear conditions, dry air. Once that cooler air moves over that warmer, moist surface further seaward, you start seeing some of these cloud streets develop. So really interesting, taking a look at this image this evening. Let's take a look at the surface analysis now for this evening, the 23rd of September, 2022. Starting out from the west coast, and we'll work our way east. Generally, we see that area of lower pressure, generally just north of the North Dakota line there in parts of Canada, central Canada, with a occluded front. And then that occluded front becomes a cold front extending across parts of eastern Dakotas, working its way southward into west central Nebraska, as well as into parts of Colorado and Utah. We do have those showers generally associated right along this frontal boundary. Additionally, we do see an area of low pressure, generally off over the parts of the Oklahoma Panhandle with another cool front. This was one heck of a cold front, by the way. This was the first significant cold front of the season, extending all the way down into the northern Gulf of Mexico, as well as into parts of central Florida. So you know this was a strong cold front. This is the first significant cold front of the new fall season. Notice there's a 1024 millibar high pressure system situated in the vicinity of Dayton, Ohio this evening. We got some lighter winds now working their way into the mid-Atlantic states as the high pressure ridges in, that pressure gradient relaxes. Additionally, we have some nice cool temperatures across New England this evening as well. So the eastern United States, from Illinois to the East Coast, nice weather this evening. Lower Michigan included, if you have travel plans anywhere in this area, mid-Atlantic, Midwest to the New England area, looking fairly good. Now, obviously, there are some showers on the backside of this high-pressure system. There's some heavier showers across parts, as we looked at. There was some showers across parts of Illinois. But generally, east of that high pressure is where you're going to get the most stable side of the high and fair weather. So, gorgeous evening, staying basically from the high pressure over Dayton, Ohio, eastward. Looking at the 300 millibar wind speed forecast for Saturday, 24 September 2022, we're starting to see significant differences in these weather maps now as we are now into the fall season officially. We're seeing the polar front jet stream now becoming more of a frequent visitor to the United States. About a month ago when I started doing some of these videos, that polar front jet axis, that jet stream was well to the north of the U.S. border up into Canada. But now we're starting to see, this is Saturday morning now, you see the orange colors indicating stronger wind speeds. Typically we call those jet max or a jet streak. Higher wind speeds within the jet core axis itself. And we do see some higher wind speeds in British Columbia as well as Alberta province extending southeastward on Saturday morning into parts of Montana. Additionally, we have a jet streak stretching from eastern Kansas through northern Missouri and southern Illinois. Generally, winds are in excess of 90 knots in that location up at 30,000 feet or 300 millibars. And then there's some more energy, jet stream energy, another finger of a jet over the western Atlantic this evening. Looking at the Saturday evening forecast here on the right at 300 millibar wind speeds, we see a ridge, an upper level ridge, generally building across parts of the North Pacific Northwest up into western Canada. And downstream of that ridge, long wave ridge, we see the winds orientated more northwest to southeast. We see more of a northwesterly winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere from the Dakotas into Iowa and Illinois. Additionally, we see more of a west to east regime or wind flow at 300 millibars across parts of Kentucky into the mid-Atlantic, Virginia, and right into the western Atlantic Ocean. Looking at the 500 millibar wind heights and vorticity forecast for Saturday, 24 September 2022, here's Saturday morning on the left. We're showing relative vorticity by these color codes. And whenever it's maroon or red or green or blue, that generally indicates we have some sort of positive vorticity values. And you can see how much vorticity is wrapped around Hurricane Fiona up towards Prince Edward Island and Nova Scotia. And this is an intense area of lifting in the atmosphere associated with this system. You do see the main jet axis on the 500 millibar chart there along the tightest packing of the height contours. So that's showing up very nicely in a more northwest to southeast orientation from the northern plains to the mid-Atlantic. We do see a shortwave trough situated across parts of the upper Midwest for Saturday morning. And then by Saturday evening, it's more of a positively tilted trough, fairly weak from parts of Minnesota extending southwestward into South Dakota and Iowa. Generally, we have a flat west-to-east zonal flow across the mid-Atlantic states by Saturday evening, but we do see a shortwave ridge axis extending from the Pacific Northwest into western Canada. 700 millibar vertical velocity and height chart for Saturday, 24 September 2022. Here's Saturday morning on the left. Again, not much of a change from the 500 millibar level. We see a shortwave ridge axis extending northward from the Pacific Northwest into British Columbia, into western Canada. We do see a little bit of a reflection of a shortwave trough across the upper Midwest as well at the 700 millibar level. And there's a little bit of a shortwave ridge axis generally associated with that surface high, that baroclinic high pressure system. We see more of that ridge axis extending northward from West Virginia towards, that would be Lake Huron. And then look at this tightly wrapped, wound up system, Fiona's remnants, extratropical transition, and this is a beast of a storm. Lots of wind, even some pretty strong winds blowing into parts of Maine and parts of New England on the backside of this thing. And then by Saturday evening, we see that shortwave ridge axis continuing to build up northward. And what goes up in the atmosphere must come down the other side. So downstream we have that shortwave trough again, and there is that extratropical storm now from what all that Fiona energy got ingested into it. Looking at the 850 millibar wind speed forecast for Saturday, 24 September 2022, here's Saturday morning on the left, showing some pretty strong winds across parts of, that would be Alberta province of Canada, and then also pretty strong winds at 850 millibars or 5,000 feet, generally from the northwest direction across the Dakotas down into parts of Iowa. We do see some stronger winds oriented in a west-east fashion across parts of southern Missouri for Saturday morning, and then this is just some extremely strong winds, of course, from the energy of Fiona and the extratropical monster of a storm there off of Nova Scotia area. On Saturday evening, we see the upper level, or the 850 millibar winds extending, orientating themselves from northwest to southeast from the central prairies of Canada right on in down to parts of the Midwest. And there is a lot of that wind energy. Oh boy. Parts of Maine tomorrow are going to have very strong winds at 850 millibars or 5,000 feet from the northwest on the backside of this system. Looking at the surface wind forecast, this is Saturday morning, the 24th of September. Generally, we see the strongest winds well to the northeast across parts of Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, into that area, over the open waters of the western Atlantic Ocean. Not much in the way of problems across the lower 48 tomorrow morning. And then by tomorrow evening, we see a little bit more wind energy, generally blowing from the central prairie, Canadian prairies down into the upper northern plain states. But the rest of the country looking pretty good. Precipitation forecast for Saturday, 24 September. Here's Saturday morning on the left. And, you know, if you've got plans to travel, not too bad tomorrow. You may run into a few showers along Interstate 64 through Kentucky. Also Interstate 65 heading from the Kentucky line northward towards Indianapolis. Additionally, you could see some showers there along Interstate 57 going from Kentucky entering into southern Illinois, the southern tip of Illinois. And additionally, you could see some scattered showers there along Interstate 44 towards the Branson, Missouri area. But other than that, it's looking pretty good tomorrow morning across the lower 48 as a whole. Conditions will be dry on Interstate 5, Interstate 94, Interstate 90, Interstate 80, Interstate 70, and then generally this area, again, as I mentioned, you could see some showers. By Saturday evening on the right, still fairly dry from the west coast to the east coast. We do see a couple scattered showers across southern Florida. Might be wet around Miami tomorrow evening. And additionally, we do see a few scattered showers across parts of northern Minnesota into western Wisconsin. Looking at the forecast high temperatures for Saturday, the 24th of September, what are we looking at? The hottest temperatures will be confined to parts of Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas, staying pretty hot with highs in the 90s, mid to upper 90s in fact, 95 at Houston, 97 at Dallas. Oklahoma City coming in tomorrow with a pretty warm 91 degrees for late September. And then additionally, we have the typical heats over the desert areas of southern Arizona and southeastern California. We do see some cooler temps across parts of the upper Midwest, where highs will be generally upper 50s in parts of northeastern Minnesota, the Duluth area, International Falls as an example, as well as northern Wisconsin. The highs will only be in the upper 50s. And then we see more in the way of 60s for high temperatures across central Minnesota, Wisconsin, into lower Michigan, and parts of New England for tomorrow. Looking at the low temperature forecast for Saturday night into Sunday morning, 25th September, look at how much more blue we have on this chart now for the low temperatures tonight. These days are getting shorter as we have moved past the autumnal equinox. Days are growing shorter, the nights are gaining longer as far as the amount of darkness. And we're getting some more enhanced long-wave Earth radiation, resulting in much cooler temperatures by the morning, especially when you get a dry air mass in place. Look at these low temperatures by Sunday morning in the parts of Pennsylvania, New York State, and Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Low temperatures are going to be down into the 30s in some of these locations, and the 40s into Pennsylvania. We even see low 50s into parts of Virginia, and even into the interior portions of North Carolina. Lower 50s for the Midwest, Chicago, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Des Moines, very chilly. And then, of course, in the higher elevations out west in the Rockies, Low temperatures are down into the upper 20s to lower 30s. The warmest temperatures overnight on Saturday night and Sunday morning will be in Oklahoma, in Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, southern Missouri, Mississippi, and then right along the Gulf Coast, Interstate 10, as well as the Florida Peninsula. Now, we're watching Tropical Depression 9 very closely. This is one of those systems that I kind of alluded to this in the opener. We talked about Hurricane Matthew in October of 2016. Look at where these systems form. They generally like to form in the Caribbean as we head into the fall season. And on the left here, I'm showing you the ensemble, all the different potential possibilities of the track of Tropical Depression 9. This is the European ensemble, by the way. These are all the members. All these different lines represent different members. So we have different initialization, we have different outcomes. And whenever these lines are closest together, that indicates that there's a higher confidence of an outcome. So generally looking at the model runs, additionally to the ensembles, the operational model runs at midday today, I did notice through about 96 hours, to about just north of Cuba, all the models are showing this general track to where it crosses western Cuba. Tropical Depression 9 intensifies eventually into a hurricane north of Cuba in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. All right. So really good agreement out to about 4 days with this thing as far as track right now. Once you get beyond 4 days, though, we have a wide spread of potential outcomes. Does it continue to go north towards the Florida Panhandle? If it goes west into Panama City, west of Apalachicola, that'd be a bad situation for Apalachicola because this shape of this bay is concave. So if you get a tropical system, a cyclone that goes west of the Apalachicola Bay, that's very bad news for that area as far as storm surge and the shape of this concave shape to the bay, to that particular Apalachicola area. That could really cause a lot of problems with storm surge. Looking at the right, this is the GFS Ensemble forecasting system. So you can see there's general agreement now that this system is going to develop further. The National Hurricane Center is expecting it to become a major hurricane. Now, what is a major hurricane? That is a Category 3 or stronger with 111 mile per hour sustained winds, or basically 111 to 130 miles per hour is a Cat 3. So in general, we generally have a track here. This could have significant impacts, not only in western Cuba, not only in Florida, but if this thing goes out over the western Atlantic, back up over the water after it crosses Florida, this could have impacts all the way up from the southeast coast to the mid-Atlantic coast. And even this morning scenario with the operational European model was really scary, as it had this system redeveloping and intensifying, becoming extratropical, becoming a nor'easter. Just had all the right dynamics as it came off the Florida coast, the model run this morning, with a jet streak or jet maximum, the divergent quadrant, helping to provide that upper level divergence or exhaust over the system as it transitioned from a tropical warm core low to an extratropical low. This has got to be watched closely is what I'm getting at. There's a potential for some significant impacts for the mid-Atlantic late next week. And there's my general range, 29 September to 1 October. So we're going to have to see how this all plays out. What will be the speed of forward motion of this thing? Usually when the troughs dip down in the eastern U.S., they generally tend to pick these things up, and the systems accelerate as they go poleward. So we're just going to have to watch this closely. Looking at the temperature regime, we had our first real taste of fall across the eastern United States with the passage of a significant cold front. And really, this is the CFS V2 over here, temperature forecast anomaly in degrees Celsius, ranging from 23 September out through 3 October, from today all the way into the 3rd of October. The blue coloring indicating below normal temperatures. Here's the scale on the right, generally across the Ohio Valley to the East Coast up into New England. See this blue area? So we're expecting cooler than normal temperatures for the foreseeable future across the eastern United States, with the warmest or above normal temperatures across parts of Alberta and western Canada and parts of Saskatchewan and the northern plain states, again, Montana, into parts of the Pacific Northwest. If you look at the temperature anomalies from the European operational model here on the right, I just took a sample. You're looking at the date here on next Thursday, the 29th of September. Look at where the warmest temperatures are. We're looking at 15 to 20 degree Fahrenheit temperatures above normal. Next Thursday, the 29th of September, for parts of Montana into Wyoming, as well as parts of the western Dakotas. So that's something we got to watch really, really closely, folks. Much cooler there in the eastern United States. And this is mostly associated with the clouds and moisture with what could potentially be Hermine or even Ian. One of the two, Hermine or Ian, may generally tend to stay offshore, and it'll keep northerly winds in place for a longer period of time along the eastern U.S. Now, finally, to end tonight's video. This is the Hampton Roads local 7-day forecast, bringing it closer to home. Generally, we're expecting a beautiful autumn day tomorrow on Saturday if you got outdoor plans. Mostly sunny skies, high temperature in the mid-70s after a pretty chilly morning. We can see low temperatures down into the lower 50s tomorrow morning. Generally, what we're expecting is the next cold front to approach late in the day on Sunday. We could see some PM showers, but we're not expecting anything heavy at this time. We do see warmer temperatures out ahead of that cold front as the winds shift to the southwest. And then we do see warmer temperatures lingering with lots of sun on Monday next week, and then dropping again by Tuesday down to the upper 70s for highs. And really what we're watching is that Thursday-Friday time period, the end of next week, the 29th and 30th of September, with the rain and wind potential, with whatever is the remnants of the tropical system coming up the East Coast. So we'll have to keep an eye on this. There's a potential this thing could swing wide right, the tropical system, and we get nothing except maybe some gustier winds from the north, or it could have some significant impact. So it's something to watch closely. By the way, my winter outlook is coming soon. I just wrapped up part 1. I have 5 parts this year to the winter outlook video series and what I'm expecting for the upcoming 2022-23 winter season. So I'm looking forward to presenting that shortly. All right, that wraps things up this evening here at Spot On Weather. We believe in one thing. We believe in accuracy through precision. That's our motto, and I certainly appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, take a time out of your day. Take care, everybody, and I'm looking forward to a lot more to come in the videos on the YouTube channel. Take care, and God bless everyone.